An hour ago, my husband laughed triumphantly as he threw me onto the street after stealing all my bank access. But now he's calling me, crying hysterically, begging for forgiveness because, as it turns out, that evening, a heavy rain fell outside the windows of Mark's home office. The middle-aged man, his stomach beginning to show a paunch, sat in his leather chair, drumming his fingers on the polished mahogany desk. His eyes were fixed sharply on Ava, his wife, who sat calmly across from him. During their 10-year marriage, Ava had always been known as a compliant wife. She was the one who had built their fintech startup from scratch. But Mark, always the one in front of the cameras, claimed all its success as the fruit of his hard work as the head of the family. Ava never protested. She preferred to work behind the scenes, handling the coding, security systems, and finances. "Ava," Mark called. His voice was as gentle as he could make it, but it held an urgency he couldn't hide. "You know my real estate projects have been a bit slow lately. I need some certainty about our family's cash flow. Open your laptop. I want to see the transaction history for the main account you manage." Ava looked at her husband slowly. Her face was flat, but inside, alarm bells were screaming. This was it, the moment she had been waiting for. "What for, Mark?" Ava asked, her tone deliberately trembling, playing the part of a worried wife. "The money in that account is our reserve fund, the kids' school fees if we have them, our emergency fund. You already control the company's operational accounts." Mark sighed harshly. His gentle act was starting to fade. "Ava, don't start. I'm your husband, the head of this family. Are you saying I can't know the extent of my own wife's assets? Don't you trust me? Or are you hiding something from me?" It was Mark's signature move. Gaslighting, twisting the facts to make it seem like Ava was the one at fault. In the past, this tactic had always made Ava back down, but today was different. Ava looked down, feigning hesitation. Her hands slowly reached for her MacBook, opening it and typing in the password. The screen lit up, displaying an online banking dashboard with a final balance that made Mark's eyes widen. $19 million. Mark swallowed hard. He never imagined the liquid cash Ava had quietly saved was this much. The corner of his lip twitched, holding back a triumphant smirk that was about to explode. He was already imagining a luxury vacation to Europe, buying the latest sports car, and, of course, spoiling Chloe. "Good," Mark muttered, his eyes glued to the string of zeros on the screen. "Now, slide the laptop over here." Ava held onto the laptop for a moment. "Mark, you just wanted to see it, right? You don't need to slide it over. I can read the details to you." "Slide it here, Ava," Mark snapped, his voice rising this time. His hand roughly snatched the laptop, pulling it from Ava's grasp. Without wasting a moment, Mark's large fingers began typing furiously. He opened the account settings menu. Ava watched from across the table, her expression crafted to look as panicked as possible. "Mark, what are you doing? Why are you in the profile settings?" Ava half stood. Mark grunted cynically, his eyes still focused on the screen. "I'm just tidying up the administration. This account is too large for a woman who panics as easily as you do to handle. From now on, I'm taking absolute control of this account." A small ping sounded from Ava's phone on the desk. Notifications flooded in. Notification. The phone number linked to your account has been changed. Notification. Your account recovery email has been changed. Notification. Your password has been successfully changed. "Mark!" Ava cried out, her voice now genuinely hysterical. It was an acting skill she didn't even know she possessed. "You changed all the access credentials. What am I supposed to do if I need money for groceries or to pay the utility bills? Are you insane?" Mark slammed the laptop shut with a loud crack. He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms over his chest, and looked at Ava with a condescending glare. The pretense of the gentle husband was gone. In his place was a leech who had just found his biggest prey. "Groceries?" Mark laughed mockingly. "I'll transfer you for trivial things like that. But this account and everything in it is officially mine. This is your husband's money, the result of my sweat that you've been enjoying all this time. It's time that right returned to its owner." Ava stood, her chest heaving. "That's money from my work, Mark. The systems I built day and night." Systems you built using my house's facilities, my electricity, and your status as my wife, Mark retorted just as loudly. Now, you'd better shut up, or you'll regret it. The next morning, the atmosphere in the house was frigid. Ava had just finished showering when she heard the familiar sound of a car horn from the front yard. It wasn't Mark's car. It was Chloe's. Ava walked to the second-floor bedroom window. Sure enough, a bright red SUV was parked neatly in front of the garage. Chloe got out of the car, wearing large sunglasses, a tight maroon dress, and a designer handbag that cost as much as a regular employee's annual salary. A bag that Ava knew was bought with her husband's credit card. Mark came out the front door, greeting Chloe with an intimate hug on the porch. They didn't even bother to hide it from Mr. Henderson, the security guard for their gated community, who could only stand stiffly in his booth, pretending to watch the street. Ava quickly changed into a casual shirt and jeans, then grabbed a cabin-sized suitcase she had prepared and hidden under the bed 2 weeks ago. She pulled the suitcase down the stairs. The sound of its wheels on the marble floor made Mark and Chloe, who had just entered the living room, turn their heads. Well, Chloe said, taking off her sunglasses and looking Ava up and down with a disgusted stare. Finally realized your place, have you? Good. It's better if you know when to get lost without being dragged out. Ava ignored Chloe. Her gaze was fixed on Mark, who stood with an arrogant smile, his arm wrapped casually around Chloe's waist. Mark, Ava said, her voice low but sharp. You brought this woman into our home while I am still legally your wife. Our home? Mark laughed. His laughter echoed through the large room. This is my house, Ava. Everything is in my name. And as of last night, the money is also completely under my control. Mark stepped forward, releasing his hug from Chloe, and stood directly in front of Ava. He pointed toward the exit. You are now nothing but a homeless beggar without a penny to your name, he yelled, the veins in his neck bulging. His voice was deliberately loud so the whole house could hear. He then turned to the door, shouting for the guard. Security! Henderson, get over here! Mr. Henderson hurried from his post, his old face pale. Yes, Mr. Mark. Can I help you? Mark gestured to Ava with his chin. Open the gate wide. Let this woman out, and remember her face well, Henderson. Don't you ever let her back in. If even the tip of her shoe crosses this gate, you're fired on the spot. Understood? Mr. Henderson swallowed hard. He looked at Ava with a pitying and conflicted expression. He knew very well who the truly good person in this house was. It was Ava who always set aside food for him, who secretly bought him a new uniform when his old one was torn, and who gave him a holiday bonus far larger than required. But Mr. Henderson needed this job to support his grandchild. I'm sorry, Mrs. Ava. Mr. Henderson's voice trembled. He bowed his head low. This way, ma'am. I'll escort you out. Ava looked at Mr. Henderson for a moment. Her gaze softened. She nodded slowly. Then she looked at Mark one last time. There were no tears, no hysterical screams begging not to be kicked out, just a cold, unreadable stare. I hope you enjoy what you've taken, Mark, Ava said softly, so softly it was almost a whisper. Ava turned, pulled her suitcase, and walked out the front door. Behind her, she could hear Chloe's loud, triumphant laughter. The sun was scorching as Ava stepped out of the tall iron gates, which were immediately shut by Mr. Henderson. Instead of hailing a cab or walking aimlessly while mourning her fate as her husband imagined, Ava reached into her pocket, took out a pair of sunglasses, and put them on. Her steps were light. Her heart was pounding, but not from sadness, from adrenaline. She walked along the tree-lined sidewalk for about 10 minutes, away from the exclusive gated community and toward the main road. At the corner of an intersection was a premium coffee shop, quiet and calm during work hours like this. She pushed open the glass door, greeted by a cool blast of AC and the aroma of freshly ground coffee beans. Morning, 1 iced Americano. Less ice, no sugar, Ava ordered politely from the barista. After paying with a virtual debit card from an account Mark knew nothing about, Ava chose a seat in a corner near the window. From her position, she could see the street, but her privacy was maintained. She opened her cabin suitcase. It contained no clothes at all, Inside were only a few important leather-bound documents, an encrypted external hard drive, and a backup laptop, a monster-spec gaming laptop she used for high-level data rendering. Ava turned on her laptop. Once at the home screen, she didn't open social media or news sites. She opened a command line terminal, a black screen with green text scrolling continuously. Her fingers danced swiftly across the keyboard. She reached for her phone and dialed a number. The call was answered on the second ring. "Hello? Ava? You out of that hell house?" The baritone voice on the other end was relaxed but alert. It was David, her old college friend, now one of the sharpest corporate and IT lawyers in San Francisco. "I'm out, David. Exactly as we predicted. He kicked me out, brought Chloe in. And most importantly, last night he changed all the credentials on the bank account I showed him," Ava said, sipping her cold coffee. A faint smile played on her lips. David chuckled on the other end. "What an idiot, your husband." "Sorry, ex-husband. He didn't realize the account you showed him was just a dummy account. He wouldn't have noticed. His eyes were blinded by the $19 million on the screen. He has no idea that the corporate banking system I modified has layered smart contracts." Ava glanced at the clock in the top right corner of her laptop screen. She opened a stopwatch app and started it. The timer began. "So, the automated script is active now?" David asked for confirmation. "The moment he changed the password and email using the home IP address without biometric authentication from me, the first stage of the script was triggered," Ava explained calmly. She looked at the lines of code on her screen, which now showed the status: executing. In 1 hour from now, the system will read that the account has been forcibly taken over. And because that account is linked to an auto-debit system I deliberately tied to a fictitious debt with a shell corporation overseas, the system will perform a mass sweep. All funds in that account, plus any account he tries to link to it later, will be drained completely." "Brilliant," David praised. "But are you sure he'll transfer the money?" "Mark is greedy and paranoid, David. He won't let his stolen money sit for long in an account that's still legally in my name. Even though he holds the password, he'll definitely move the funds to his real estate company's primary account this morning, while the banks are open and Chloe is right there, egging him on. And when he makes that transfer, the moment he clicks that button, the second layer of security will activate," Ava explained, her smile widening. "The system will lock his IP address, drain his balance, and automatically send the suspicious transaction history to the bank's internal monitoring system, which will immediately trigger an IRS audit for his company." David let out a low whistle. "Damn, Ava. You're ruthless. I like it. All right, I'll be on standby at my office. As soon as the bomb goes off, he's going to look for a legal loophole. I've already prepared the digital forensic logs that prove he's the one who knowingly accessed and transferred the money." "Perfect. Thanks, David. I'll wait for your call." Ava ended the call. She leaned back against the plush cafe sofa. She sipped her Americano again. It had never tasted so sweet. Ava's eyes were fixed on the stopwatch on her screen. 30 minutes passed. 45 minutes. 55 minutes. Ava sat calmly, watching the street outside. Occasionally, she tapped her fingers on the table, following the rhythm of the slow jazz music playing in the cafe. Precisely at the 60-minute mark, Ava's phone, lying on the table, vibrated violently. The screen lit up, displaying Mark, with a picture of him smiling smugly, a picture Ava hadn't gotten around to deleting. Ava let the phone ring. She intentionally savored every second. The first call went to voicemail. A few seconds later, her phone rang again. The second call. Ava remained still, her eyes fixed on the phone screen as if she could see the panic on the other side. On the third call, Ava finally swiped the green button. She brought the phone to her ear, but said nothing. From the other side, it wasn't an arrogant voice that greeted her, but the sound of ragged, heavy breathing, followed by a loud, desperate groan. "Ava! Ava! Pick up! Please pick up!" Mark's voice was trembling badly, on the verge of tears. "Hello, Mark," Ava answered, her tone flat. Her voice was as cold as ice. "What's wrong? I thought I was a homeless beggar who wasn't allowed to set foot in your house anymore. Ava, Kirana, please help me. This is insane. What's wrong with the system?" Mark now sounded genuinely hysterical. In the background, Ava could hear the sound of shattering glass and Chloe's shrill, cursing screams. "What system, Mark?" "I'm just having coffee by the roadside," Ava replied casually. "The money! The money is all gone, Ava. The $19 million. It's gone." When I tried to transfer $5 million to my company account, the screen suddenly turned red. It said, "Security breach detected." Mark spoke in a rapid-fire pace, his breath ragged. And then, my balance went into the negative. Not just the account I took from you, but my company's main account that I used to receive the transfer got frozen too. Ava, my money is gone. My company's balance was wiped out, pulled by some foreign account with a weird name. Ava smiled. The smart contract had worked even more perfectly than she had imagined. And what's driving me crazy is that my guy at the office just called. He said there was a notification from the banking system that my company has been reported for suspected money laundering because of this morning's anomalous transaction. The IRS is coming tomorrow morning. Ava, what did you do? Please cancel it, Ava. I'm begging you. The sound of Mark's sobs was now clear. The man who, just an hour ago, had puffed out his chest and thrown her out like a stray dog, was now whimpering, begging on the other end of the line. Ava took a long, deep breath, enjoying the air that felt so much fresher. "Mark," she said, her voice intentionally low, soft, but piercing. "What did you say this morning?" "This is your husband's money, the result of my sweat." "That right has returned to its owner." Ava mimicked Mark's words with a mocking intonation. "Well, now that right has truly returned to its owner. You know about karma, Mark? You reap what you sow." "Ava, I'm sorry. I'll give you back the access right now. Come home, okay? Chloe, I'll kick her out right now. I'll kick her out. Ava, please fix the system." Mark roared in desperation. "Too late, Mark. That system was designed without a cancel button. Enjoy the rest of your day, because tomorrow, you won't have anything left to save." Without waiting for Mark's reply, Ava pressed the red button, ending the call. She turned off her phone, removed the SIM card from its slot, then snapped the small card in two and tossed it into an ashtray on the table. The first act was over, but the main performance was just about to begin. They say a wife's instinct is sharper than any military radar. For Ava, the destruction of her marriage didn't begin this morning. It began 6 months ago, on a rainy Thursday night, with a trivial object, Mark's old iPad. That night, Mark had used the excuse of a sudden late-night meeting with an out-of-town client. Ava, while cleaning her husband's office, accidentally knocked over Mark's old iPad, which was lying under a pile of documents. The screen lit up, displaying a pop-up message from a secure messaging app that Mark had forgotten to log out of. The message was short, from a contact with no name, just a black heart emoji. "Mark, thanks for the gift. I love it. You're staying at my apartment tonight, right? I miss you." Ava remembered how her breath caught in her throat that night. Her hands trembled as she entered the iPad's password, a combination of Mark's birth date that he hadn't changed in 10 years. With cold hands, Ava opened the chat. Her world collapsed. There were hundreds of disgusting messages. Photos from secret vacations to Miami that Mark had claimed were business trips, and proof of transfers for tens of thousands of dollars every month. The woman's name was Chloe, a freelance real estate agent who had been her husband's mistress for nearly 2 years. But what truly killed Ava's heart that night wasn't the affair itself, but a conversation they'd had 2 weeks prior. "Chloe, Mark, how much longer are you going to stay with that stiff? You said you were going to divorce her." "Mark, be patient, baby. She's a free cash machine. The startup she built is booming. I'm slowly handling the legalities to move all the assets into my name. Once it's all clean, I'll kick her out. Just be patient. Soon we'll be the king and queen of the castle." That night, Ava went into the bathroom, locked the door, and turned the shower on full blast. She cried her heart out under the cold water, mourning 10 years of loyalty repaid with the cruelest betrayal. But the crying lasted for exactly 30 minutes. After her eyes were swollen, Ava turned off the water, looked at her reflection in the mirror, and wiped away the last of her tears. Her sadness evaporated, replaced by a cold, icy disgust and rage. Mark thought he was smart, Mark thought he could play a systems analyst whose daily job was to find loopholes and weaknesses in networks. "You want to play with assets, Mark?" Ava whispered to her reflection. "Let's play." From that moment on, the compliant Ava was dead. She began to plan a financial revenge scenario that Mark would never forget for the rest of his life. The next day, Ava met with David, her old college friend who was now a lawyer specializing in business law and asset disputes. They met at an exclusive omakase restaurant in Palo Alto. "This is insane, Ava," David commented after seeing all the screenshot evidence Ava had gathered the night before. "This guy has been planning to bankrupt you from the start. We can hit him in family court and criminal court right now." "Your evidence is solid." "No, David," Ava replied calmly, stirring her iced matcha latte. "If I file for divorce now, he'll fight it. He'll hire expensive lawyers with my money, and the process will drag on for years. The marital assets will be split 50-50. I don't want to share a single cent of my hard work with a parasite like him." David raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "So what's your plan?" "I want him to take the money himself, with his own hands, and destroy himself in the process," Ava said. "I need you to set up a shell corporation in Singapore, under a fictitious foundation or something legal but not directly traceable to me." David nodded slowly, his mind beginning to process Ava's plan. "Okay, that can be arranged. Then we slowly move all my real assets, the startup shares, my savings to the new entity, so cleanly that Mark won't notice. And for the main account he monitors, we'll leave it, but we'll fill it with illusory money." "Illusory money? What do you mean?" "Remember that dummy project I worked on for a private bank server testing last year? I'm going to build the same system. We'll manipulate the transaction dashboard to make it look like the balance is $19 million. In reality, it's empty money tied to a smart contract." Ava leaned forward, her eyes glinting with intelligence. "This account will be my poison pill. I'm going to create a secret loan agreement between this personal bank account and the shell corporation in Singapore. The clause will state, in the event of a forced transfer of access or a login from an unrecognized IP without Ava's biometric verification, all funds in this account, along with any other linked accounts, will be automatically seized as payment for a defaulted loan." David stared, a look of awe and terror on his face. "Ava, you realize that if Mark accesses that account and tries to transfer the money, he's contractually binding himself to that debt. The bank's system will see him as the responsible party because he transferred the credentials to his name." "That's exactly the point, David." Ava smiled coldly. "I'm going to bait him. I'm going to make him feel like he's successfully stolen my password. The moment his greed makes him click that transfer button, boom, the system will drain not just that account, but his own company account he uses to receive the money. And because the balance is pulled overseas, the bank's money laundering detection system will immediately go off. The IRS will get involved." David leaned back and laughed softly. "Mark won't just be broke, Ava. He'll be billions in debt and hounded by the IRS. This execution has to be perfect." "It will be," Ava promised. And for the next 6 months, Ava wove her spider's web with meticulous care, waiting for her husband to willingly step into it. This morning, the arrogant fly was finally trapped. Back in the present, in the luxurious 2-story house Ava had just left, the air in Mark's office felt scorching hot, despite the AC being set to 60 degrees. Beads of sweat rolled down Mark's forehead, dripping onto the screen of his expensive phone. The linen shirt that had looked so crisp this morning was now a wrinkled mess. "This can't be happening. It can't be," Mark muttered, his breath coming in short gasps. His index finger trembled as he hit the refresh button on his company's mobile banking app for the 15th time. "Your balance, -$1.5 million. Account temporarily frozen." Mark slammed his fist on the desk. "Damn it. Useless bank, garbage app." In the corner of the room, Chloe, who had been busy trying on clothes from Ava's closet, turned with an annoyed look. "What is your problem, Mark? You're being so loud." "I'm trying to check out with this Dior bag, but the supplementary card you gave me keeps getting declined. Is the limit maxed out? Didn't you just get $19 million from Ava?" Hearing Ava's name and Chloe's shopping demands, Mark's emotions exploded. He hurled his phone against the wall, cracking the screen. "Shut up, Chloe," he roared, his voice thundering, making Chloe jump and drop the bag. $19 million my ass. The money is gone. Not just Ava's money, but my company's operating funds, the apartment project money, all of it. Sucked dry by some damn system. Chloe's face went pale. What do you mean, Mark? How is it gone? You're the one who changed the password this morning. You transferred it to your account, right? That's the problem, you idiot. Mark tore at his own hair, his eyes red with panic and rage. When I transferred it, there was some weird notification, and then suddenly all my balances were gone. 0, actually negative. This has to be Ava's trap. Before Chloe could process Mark's words, the phone on the desk rang shrilly. Mark snatched it violently. "Hello? Mr. Mark, it's me, James, your finance manager." The voice on the other end was hysterical, punctuated by the sound of people shouting. "Sir, where are you? It's chaos at the office. People from the bank and a joint IRS task force just walked into the lobby. They have a court order to freeze our assets. They said our company is suspected of facilitating international money laundering because of an anomalous transfer this morning. The payroll account for the construction workers is frozen too. Sir, the workers on the project are rioting, demanding their weekly pay." Mark's knees gave out. His body slumped to the thick carpet. The phone slipped from his grasp, letting James's voice continue to scream his name. An IRS audit, frozen assets, money laundering. Those 3 phrases rang in Mark's ears like a death knell. If investigators started digging into his books, it wouldn't just be the missing money that was the problem. The bribery, tax manipulation, and material markups he had been doing to fund his and Chloe's lavish lifestyle would all be exposed. He would go to prison. He would be utterly destroyed. Mark? Chloe stepped forward hesitantly, looking at her partner, who was now a crumpled mess on the floor, with horror. Are you bankrupt?" Mark looked up, staring at Chloe with empty eyes. We're finished, Chloe. I have to find Ava. She's the only one who can undo this. When a luxury ship starts to sink, the rats are the first to jump overboard. Hearing the confirmation directly from Mark's mouth, Chloe's cunning mind went into overdrive. Bankrupt. Hunted by the IRS. Rioting construction workers. No. Chloe did not sign up for a life of suffering. She was with Mark because he was a walking ATM, not because of love. If the ATM was broken and causing problems, it was time to run. "I'll get you a drink, Mark. You just calm down," Chloe said, her voice deliberately soft. Mark just nodded weakly, still rubbing his face, wet with cold sweat. Instead of going to the kitchen, Chloe ran to the master bedroom. She opened the large closet where Mark kept his personal safe. Chloe knew the combination, her own birthday. Mark was a fool, blinded by love and overconfidence. With trembling, hurried hands, Chloe dialed the combination. Click. The safe opened. Her eyes lit up at the sight of piles of gold jewelry, property deeds, and several stacks of US dollars that Mark kept for emergencies. Without a second thought, Chloe grabbed the largest Hermes bag from the bed and started scooping the entire contents of the safe into it. To hell with Mark. This was enough for her to run off to Miami and find a new victim. But as her hand reached for a Rolex watch box, a large shadow fell over her from the doorway. "What are you doing?" The deep, hoarse voice made Chloe's blood run cold. She turned slowly. Mark was standing in the doorway, his eyes fixed on Chloe's bulging bag. Chloe stammered, trying to hide the safe with her body. Mark, I was just securing our valuables. You said the IRS was coming to seize things, so I thought I'd get them out of here." "Liar!" Mark lunged forward, grabbing Chloe's arms so tightly that she screamed in pain. "You were going to run, weren't you? You were going to leave me when I'm in trouble." "Let go, Mark. You're hurting me." Chloe struggled, her true colors now showing. "Yes, I was leaving. What am I supposed to do here? Wait for the police to come and arrest you? Wait for those workers to beat me up? What kind of man are you? Supposedly so rich, but you get played so easily by your own wife. You're broke now, Mark. Broke." The word broke was like pulling a trigger. Mark's patience vanished. His hand swung, and a hard slap landed on Chloe's cheek, sending her flying onto the bed. Her designer bag fell, its contents spilling across the marble floor. Gold and dollar bills scattered everywhere. Chloe held her reddening cheek, glaring at Mark with pure hatred. "You dare hit me? You bastard, Mark! You pathetic loser! No wonder Ava was disgusted by you. Shut your mouth, you whore!" Mark cursed, panting heavily. He crouched down, frantically gathering his scattered wealth. "This is my money. You don't deserve a single cent. Get out of my house. Get out." Chloe spat on the floor. She stood up, adjusting her disheveled dress. She didn't care about the money anymore. The important thing was to get out of this house before the authorities arrived. "You don't have to tell me twice. Enjoy your hell, Mark," Chloe hissed sharply. She turned, ran down the stairs as fast as she could, got into her car, and sped away from the house. Mr. Henderson, on duty at the gate, could only watch in shock as the red car drove off recklessly. Upstairs, Mark sat amidst his scattered dollar bills, alone, broken, and it had only been 2 hours since he had thrown his wife out. Across town, Ava had just left a premium phone store in a shopping mall. In her hand was the latest model iPhone, complete with a new VIP number. She got into a waiting executive-class Uber. "The Ritz-Carlton, please," Ava said calmly, leaning back. As she enjoyed the ride, Ava activated her new phone and restored her data from the cloud. The moment her WhatsApp was active again, a flood of messages came in. Most were from Mark's business associates, who were apparently in an uproar, and dozens of missed calls and voicemails from her ex-husband. Out of curiosity, Ava played one of Mark's voicemails. "Ava, help me." Chloe ran off. "Ava, she left me. The IRS is in my office lobby. Please, give me the password to cancel the system. I'm begging you, Ava. The house will be seized if I don't return the balance. I promise I'll get on my knees for you. I promise I'll—" Ava hit the stop button. She didn't need to hear the rest of the nonsense. Mark wasn't sorry for hurting her. He was only sorry he got caught and lost his money. The regret of a greedy man is never sincere. Ava's nimble fingers calmly typed a reply. Short, concise, and deadly. No insults, no all caps, just an absolute statement from someone who had won the war. The system doesn't have a cancel button. The money you transferred is a debt that is now legally yours. Enjoy your new wealth, darling. See you in court. Vent. 2 blue checks appeared instantly, indicating Mark was staring at the screen, reading the message that very second. Ava could imagine him whimpering and roaring in the big house that would soon be seized. Ava blocked Mark's number permanently. She then looked out the taxi window. San Francisco looked bright that afternoon, as bright as her future. The heavy burden that had weighed on her for 10 years was finally lifted. She closed her eyes, letting a genuine smile spread across her face. This was just the beginning of Mark's destruction, and Ava would make sure he drank the poison she had brewed down to the very last drop. The smell of stale instant coffee and stuffy air greeted Mark as he stepped into the local police precinct. His shirt, neatly ironed that morning, was now hopelessly wrinkled. His hair was a mess, and his eyes were bloodshot. Across from him, a police officer looked at him with a furrowed brow, trying to make sense of the report coming from the disheveled middle-aged man. "So, let me get this straight, Mr. Mark," the officer interjected, tapping his pen on the desk. "You're reporting that your wife, Mrs. Ava, hacked into your company's bank account and stole over $10 million? "Not hacked, officer. She trapped me." Mark slammed the table, causing several people in the room to turn. "She deliberately planted some kind of virus or phishing link in her own bank account. When I logged in and tried to move the funds, the system sucked all the money out of my receiving account. Arrest her. This is cybercrime. Theft." The officer sighed. Before he could respond, the glass door to the room opened. David walked in, dressed in a perfectly tailored, expensive suit, carrying an elegant leather briefcase. His aura was calm and commanding, a stark contrast to Mark, who looked like a madman. "Good afternoon, detective," David greeted politely, shaking the officer's hand before placing a thick folder on the desk. "I'm David. I'm legal counsel for Mrs. Ava. I heard my client is being reported for hacking and theft." Mark glared. What are you doing here? You scumbag lawyer! Where's Ava? David completely ignored Mark. He opened his folder, pulling out a stack of neatly printed and notarized documents. Detective, before you process this baseless report, allow me to clarify the facts, David said calmly. He pointed to the first document. This is the digital log from the bank's server. As you can see here, there was no hack. Access to my client's account was made with a valid password, which was then unilaterally changed from a computer. Can you guess whose IP and MAC address this device belongs to? The officer glanced at the paper. This is an IP address from a gated community in Marin County, and the device is registered to a Mark. Exactly. David smiled faintly. Mr. Mark here knowingly and deliberately accessed my client's account, changed all its security credentials, and then initiated a fund transfer from that account to his own company's account. The problem is, Mr. Mark wasn't thorough. David flipped to the next page. The account he accessed was tied to an auto-debit facility for intercompany debt settlement. When Mr. Mark transferred the funds, the banking system automatically recognized him as the guarantor, or the party taking over the account. So, when a payment came due, the bank system legally and automatically pulled it from Mr. Mark's account. That's a standard automated banking procedure, Detective. Not a hack. Mark's face went ashen. That's a fictitious debt. Ava set it up to frame me. Prove it in civil court, Mr. Mark, David challenged, this time looking directly into the eyes of his client's ex-husband. But as for a criminal hacking report today, you have no legal grounds. In fact, my client could countersue you for illegal access to personal data and asset theft. The officer closed David's folder and looked at Mark with a firm gaze. You heard him, sir. This is a civil matter, or a result of your own negligence during a banking transaction. We cannot process your report, and I'd advise you not to file a false report. That is a crime. Mark stood there, dumbfounded. His legs felt like jelly. He couldn't fight the data. He couldn't fight the law. He backed away slowly, then turned and half ran out of the police station, carrying an ever-deepening despair. That afternoon, the lobby of the Ritz-Carlton was filled with elite guests enjoying afternoon tea. The atmosphere was serene, accompanied by the gentle melody of a classical piano, but the tranquility was shattered by the arrival of a man whose appearance clashed horribly with the luxurious surroundings. Mark burst through the revolving doors, ignoring the surprised looks from the security staff. His eyes darted wildly around the room, his breath ragged. His car had broken down on the highway after running out of gas, and he had no cash for tolls or parking. He had been forced to abandon it. Then his eyes caught her. Ava was sitting gracefully on a lounge sofa near a large glass window. She wore an elegant navy silk dress, her hair in a neat bun, her face relaxed and free of any burden. In front of her was a cup of chamomile tea and a plate of macarons. David sat across from her, busy typing on his iPad. Ava. Mark's shout made several guests at nearby tables turn in shock. Mark half ran towards their table. The hotel security immediately moved in, but Ava raised her hand, signaling to them that she knew the man, and everything was under control. Mark reached their table. His legs gave out. Without a care for his pride, without a care for the disgusted stares of the high-class hotel guests around him, Mark dropped to his knees. Both of his knees hit the thick lobby carpet. He prostrated himself before Ava's chair. Ava, I'm begging you. Mark's voice was hoarse, broken by sobs he could no longer contain. His rough hand reached for the hem of Ava's dress, but she quickly pulled her leg back. Don't touch me, Ava said coldly. Her voice was low, but its firmness made Mark shiver. I'm ruined, Ava, Mark wailed, his face looking up at her, tears streaming down his cheeks, dirty from the city's grime. My company is sealed. The workers are threatening to burn down my office. Chloe took off with what little cash and gold I had left. I have nothing. Please, Ava. I know you have the code. Please give my money back. I promise I'll do anything. I'll grovel at your feet, Ava. I'm your husband. Ava slowly set down her teacup. She looked at the man who had belittled her for 10 years, the man who had arrogantly thrown her out that very morning, ordering the guard not to let her back in. Now that man was writhing like a worm on the floor of a 5-star hotel. You're not my husband, Mark. You're just a leech that happened to stick to my life for too long, Ava replied flatly. There wasn't a hint of sympathy in her eyes. And about that money, didn't you transfer it yourself? Why are you asking me? It's your money, Ava. I know the system is just holding it, right? Please give me the release code so I can pay my taxes and my people's salaries. After that, I'll never bother you again. I'm begging you, for the sake of our past. Ava was silent for a moment. She glanced at David, who was smiling cynically. Ava then looked back at Mark. An idea crossed her mind. The final move that would ensure Mark was well and truly finished. You want the cancellation code? Ava asked. Mark nodded quickly, his eyes shining with hope. Yes, Ava. Yes, please. I can give it to you, but on one condition. Mark immediately scrambled up from the floor, his body still hunched in a pathetic bow. What is it? Anything, Ava. You want me to apologize in the newspapers? You want my car? Take it. Ava smiled faintly. Your car that's about to be repossessed by the bank? No, thank you. My condition is simple. Ava gave a signal with her eyes to David. The lawyer promptly pulled 2 red folders from his briefcase and placed them on the table in front of Mark. First condition, Ava said, pointing to the first folder. This is the divorce settlement. I want you to sign it, right now. It clearly states that you waive any right to claim marital assets and that this divorce is a result of your infidelity, the proof of which has been prepared by my lawyer. If you sign, the proceedings can be finalized in a matter of weeks without you even having to be there. Mark swallowed hard. A divorce with no claim to assets. But if he could get his company's multi-million-dollar account back and escape the IRS, it was a small price to pay. Okay, I'll sign, Mark said quickly. I'm not finished, Ava cut in. Her index finger moved to the second folder. Second condition. This is a deed of relinquishment for the house we lived in. The house is in your name, but you bought it with money from the sale of my first startup's shares. I want that house legally returned to me. Mark's eyes widened. That house is the last asset I have, Ava. If I give it to you and my company still collapses, where will I live? That's not my problem, Ava replied cruelly. You have a choice. Sign both of these now, and I will give you a flash drive containing the cancellation code algorithm. Or you can leave. Go back to that house and read for the asset seizure officers and the police to drag you to jail tomorrow morning. The decision is yours. You have 15 seconds before the offer expires. David slid an expensive fountain pen towards Mark. Mark's mind raced. If he didn't sign, he would go to jail, and the house would be seized by the state to pay his tax fines anyway. But if he signed, he had a chance to restore his system, regain access to his company, and start over. At least he wouldn't be in prison. 10 seconds. David counted down casually. Okay, I'll sign. Mark's hand trembled violently as he took the pen. He quickly scrawled his signature above the line on the divorce papers. Then, with a heavy heart, he signed the deed, relinquishing his rights to his beloved mansion. David swiftly took back the documents, checked them for a moment, and then nodded to Ava. Everything was legal and binding. Mark looked at Ava, holding his breath. Done. I've signed everything. Where's the code, Ava? Where is it? Ava looked at Mark in silence. She opened her elegant handbag and took out a small, sealed, black envelope. She slid it to the center of the table. Mark pounced on the envelope like a starving man seeing food. He tore it open violently. Inside was a small piece of paper with a series of barcodes and a complex combination of letters and numbers. That's the master key, Ava said calmly. Use your phone. Open the bank's system portal that blocked you. Enter that code in the recovery field. Mark frantically fumbled in his pocket, pulling out his phone with its cracked screen. His still shaking hands clumsily typed the URL for the banking portal. Come on, he muttered to himself, cold sweat beading on his temples. His phone screen displayed a red dialog box with the words, System Locked. Below it was a field, Enter Master Key. Very carefully, Mark typed each letter and number from the paper Ava had given him. FX900ZALA. Mark hit enter. A loading circle spun in the middle of the screen. Mark's heart felt like it had stopped. He imagined the screen turning green, displaying his company's balance restored, and he could finally breathe again. He imagined being a big boss again, even without Ava. The screen flickered, but it wasn't green that appeared. The screen turned pitch black. Then, a giant warning box in blood red popped up, covering the entire display. The words were in English, and Mark knew exactly what they meant. Fatal error. Incorrect master key. Protocol permanent lockdown initiated. All remaining assets have been forfeited. Contact the authorities. Mark's phone emitted a long beep, and the application force closed. He tried to reopen it, but the screen was frozen. The device was now completely blocked from any banking network. Mark looked up. His face was no longer pale. It was white as a sheet. His eyes were wide with utter disbelief as he stared at Ava. Ava, the screen. It turned red. It says, "Permanent lockdown. You gave me the wrong code, Ava. Give me the right one, please." Ava sipped her tea, then smiled sweetly. So sweetly it sent a chill down Mark's spine. "The code wasn't wrong, Mark," Ava said softly, using the same gentle tone she had always used during their 10 years as a dutiful wife. "There was never a cancellation code to begin with. I specifically designed that master key to be a self-destruct trigger. The moment you entered it, the system was programmed to lock all access permanently and report the case as finalized. The money will never come back." There was a moment of silence. Mark's brain refused to process the reality. You tricked me," Mark whispered, his voice barely audible. "Tricked you?" Ava let out a small, elegant, but deadly laugh. "I just made sure the transaction was complete. You wanted the money, right? It's been withdrawn. You wanted a divorce? The papers are signed. And oh, the house is now officially mine. I don't need to pay expensive lawyers or go through the hassle of dividing it with you in court. Thank you for your cooperation." Mark realized everything now. This trap had layers, and he had foolishly walked deeper and deeper into Ava's web, cutting off his own limbs until nothing was left. He had surrendered his wife, his fortune, his freedom, and his home for a fake code. "You she-devil!" Mark roared. He lunged across the table to choke her. But David was on his feet in an instant, firmly holding the man back. 2 hotel security guards who were already on standby rushed over and grabbed Mark's arms, forcing him back. "Get this man out of here. He's disturbing the peace," David commanded loudly to the guards. Mark was dragged away, struggling, kicking the air, and screaming curses at Ava. The stares of the hotel patrons pierced him like 1,000 needles, making him the most humiliating spectacle of the day. Ava just sat calmly, watching her ex-husband's departure with a deep sense of satisfaction. The cup of warm tea in her hand tasted far more delicious than usual. The Jakarta sky was beginning to darken as Mark finally arrived in front of the gates of his luxurious home. He'd taken a taxi and, having no money, left his expensive watch, the only thing Chloe hadn't managed to take with the driver as payment. Mark's steps were heavy. His body felt numb, his mind blank. He just wanted to get to his room, lock the door, and hope that when he woke up tomorrow, this would all be a bad dream. But reality was waiting for him at the 10-foot, high iron gate. The gate was wide open. In the front yard were parked 2 government bank pickup trucks and a police car. Several burly men in uniform shirts stood guard. On the porch, other officers were busy plastering large red stickers on the front windows. The stickers read, "This asset is under government supervision and seizure." The bank. Mark ran, stumbling, into the yard. "Hey! What is this? Who are you people? How dare you put these on my house?" A man in glasses who appeared to be the team leader stepped forward, holding a clipboard with a stack of documents. "Are you Mr. Mark?" the man asked coldly. "Yes, this is my house. Get out of here." The man shoved a letter into Mark's chest. "We are from the bank's curatorial team and the Internal Revenue Service. Following up on your company's account activity this morning, our system detected a massive default on a matured debt, coupled with indications of tax evasion for the past 5 years. As your accounts are empty, we have a court order to seize all fixed assets registered in your name, including this house and its contents." "You can't!" Mark screamed frantically. This house isn't in my name anymore. I just transferred it to my ex-wife." Mark realized that if the house was seized for his debts, he would lose everything. But if the house belonged to Ava, at least his company's debt couldn't touch it, even if he couldn't live there. Any transfer of ownership made after this seizure order was issued at 2 p.m. today is considered legally void, sir, the officer explained, his face expressionless. This asset is frozen. You must vacate the premises immediately. From the garage, Mark saw his SUV and the luxury sedan he used to drive being loaded onto a tow truck. All his wealth was being stripped away right before his eyes. Near the security post stood Mr. Henderson. The old guard had changed into civilian clothes, holding a small backpack with his belongings. Mr. Henderson looked at Mark with a complex expression, a mixture of pity and a sense of validation that karma worked so quickly. Mr. Henderson. Mark's voice trembled. Help me. Tell them to leave. Mr. Henderson shook his head slowly. He walked towards his former employer. I'm sorry, Mr. Mark. I'm leaving. The officers told me to lock all the gates and hand the keys over to them. You can't enter the house anymore either. Mr. Henderson's words were an echo from the past. Not even 12 hours ago, Mark was the one who had yelled that order. Don't you ever let her back in. Now, those words had come back to hit him in the face. 2 security officers stepped forward, took Mark by the arms, and forcefully guided him out of the property. Mark didn't resist. His energy was gone. His tears were dry. He stood on the sidewalk outside the gates of his own home. An officer closed the iron gate with a loud, echoing slam and attached a thick chain and padlock. Mark was thrown onto the street, alone, without a home, without a wife, without a company, and without a penny in his pocket. Night began to fall, and a cold wind blew through his thin shirt. He stared at the dark house that had once been a symbol of his arrogance. It was all over. The sound of the judge's gavel echoed 3 times in the San Francisco family court. That sound was the most beautiful music to Ava's ears. The air in the courtroom felt cool. Ava sat elegantly, wearing a cream-white blazer and matching trousers. Her hair was tied back neatly, her face radiating absolute calm. Beside her, David organized the verdict documents with a satisfied smile. Across from them, the respondent's seat was empty. Mark wasn't there. Not because he didn't want to be, but because he couldn't. Her ex-husband didn't have a penny to hire a lawyer, let alone the fare to get to court. The summons sent to his old home address, of course, never reached him because the house had been sealed by the bank. Besides, Mark's signature on the notarized divorce agreement David had prepared in the hotel lobby was already solid proof. Combined with the evidence of his affair with Chloe and Mark's new status as a suspect in a tax evasion case, the divorce was finalized in record time. Less than a month. Congratulations, Ava, David whispered, placing a copy of the ruling into his briefcase. As of this moment, you are officially a single woman again, free from the parasite. Ava let out a long breath, releasing the 10-year burden that had weighed down her shoulders. Thanks so much, David. Without your brilliant legal mind crafting those clauses, my plan wouldn't have been so seamless. They walked out of the courtroom toward the parking lot. The sun was shining brightly, as if celebrating Ava's freedom. So what's the next step? David asked, as they stood beside the new luxury car Ava had just bought this time. 100% with the money she had earned from her untouched Singapore-based company. The next step. Ava put on her sunglasses, her sharp eyes glinting behind them. I'm going to clean up the remaining trash. Mark might be destroyed, but there's one more person who hasn't had her turn. David chuckled softly. Chloe, what are you going to do to her? You know how when arrogant people fall, they usually look for another branch to cling to? Ava smiled wryly. I'm just going to make sure there isn't a single branch in this city willing to take her. Chloe swore loudly as she exited a pawn shop. She slammed the glass door in frustration, ignoring the cynical look from the security guard. Damn it! Broke, lying bastard, Chloe muttered, walking quickly towards a bus stop. She had just tried to sell some jewelry and 2 Rolex watches she had stolen from Mark's safe on the day she fled. Her plan was to use the money to rent a luxury apartment while she searched for a new sugar daddy. But it turned out the world was not on her side. The pawn shop owner had laughed in her face. The Rolex watches Mark had always boasted about were just high-quality fakes. So was the diamond necklace he claimed to have bought in Europe. Its quality was far below standard. All this time, Mark had been deceiving her with imitation goods to save his own money. The cash she had taken was real, but it wasn't much and was almost gone after a month of trying to maintain her lifestyle. Chloe refused to lower her standards. She continued to hang out at elite cafes in Palo Alto and the financial district, dressed to the nines, hunting for a wealthy, lecherous man. That night, Chloe wore her signature tight red dress and entered an exclusive lounge where businessmen often unwound. Her eyes immediately locked onto a middle-aged man wearing an authentic Richard Mille watch. Chloe had learned to tell the difference now. She sashayed over to his table, putting on her most seductive smile. "All alone? Mind if I join you?" she purred. The man looked up. At first, he smiled at Chloe's beauty, but as he got a clearer look at her face, his smile vanished, replaced by a look of disgust. The man picked up his phone, opened an exclusive WhatsApp group chat with hundreds of entrepreneurs and executives in the Bay Area, and showed the screen to Chloe's face. On the screen was a clear photo of Chloe, along with her ID, her fake work history, and digital records of her conversations with Mark planning to take over his wife's assets. Below it was a bold warning: "Beware this woman, syndicate extortionist and specialist in destroying corporate assets." The blood drained from Chloe's face. "Oh, so you're that Chloe?" The man's voice was deep and condescending. "The woman who conspired to get Mark's company seized by the government. You think news doesn't travel in our circle? There isn't a single sane person in this room who would want to get near a venomous parasite like you." Several men at the next table began whispering and staring cynically at Chloe. Derisive laughter could be heard from various corners. "Ma'am, you'd better leave now before I call security. You're ruining the view," the man said, waving his hand as if shooing away a fly. Chloe fought back tears, her face burning with overwhelming shame. She turned and ran out of the lounge into the cold San Francisco night. Ava. This has to be Ava's doing. The quiet woman she had underestimated had spread her data to every business connection in the city. Ava had truly locked every door for her. Months passed. Chloe's savings ran out. She was evicted from her small apartment for failing to pay rent. With her name blacklisted everywhere, no company or marketing agency would hire her. Eventually, Chloe's arrogance gave way to hunger. The woman who once carried designer bags worth tens of thousands of dollars now had to stand all day, fighting off fatigue, working as a door-to-door saleswoman for cheap kitchenware in a working-class neighborhood, earning a daily commission that wasn't even enough to buy a cup of coffee at the cafes she used to frequent. Rain began to fall, soaking the sidewalks of the Tenderloin. The cold night air was bone-chilling, but an old, disheveled-looking man didn't seem to care. He sat huddled in the doorway of a closed convenience store. His clothes were a grimy flannel shirt with missing buttons and torn slacks. His hair was long, dirty, and graying. He smelled of sweat, street grime, and despair. It was Mark. A year had passed since the night he was dragged out of his mansion. His life had gone into a free fall. The police and the IRS took everything. His accounts were frozen, his credit cards were canceled. He was detained for several months for tax fraud, and when he got out, he had absolutely no one. His business friends blocked his number. His relatives, whom he used to give money to, now slammed their doors in his face, afraid of being tainted by his bad luck, or asked for a loan. Mark's stomach rumbled loudly. He hadn't eaten since yesterday afternoon. His trembling left hand held a plastic cup, hoping a kind passerby would toss a coin into it. A luxury sedan sped through a puddle on the street, splashing dirty water all over Mark. He didn't even have the energy to be angry. He just wiped his wet face with his filthy sleeve. Suddenly, Mark's eyes were drawn to a giant video screen on the building across the street. The screen was displaying an ad for a prominent business magazine. On that massive screen was a face he knew all too well. Ava. His ex-wife looked radiant. She wore an elegant maroon power suit, smiling confidently at the camera. Below her face, in large letters, it read, "Ava. This year's most innovative fintech CEO, conquering the global market after hardship." Mark was stunned. He couldn't take his eyes off the screen. That face used to look at him obediently while making his coffee in the morning. That incredible woman used to be his. The money, the success, the comfort, it had all been in his grasp. But because of his greed, because he thought he was smarter. He had destroyed it all. In his head, Mark suddenly heard his own voice, echoing through time from the day he threw Ava out of the house. "You are now nothing but a homeless beggar without a penny to your name." Mark looked down at himself, at his torn pants, at the empty plastic cup in his dirty hand. Hot tears began to fall, mixing with the rain on his face. His chest ached with unbearable regret. His own words had become a curse that had boomeranged back to strike him with cruel precision. Ava was now on top of the world, untouchable, while he had truly become a homeless beggar without a penny to his name. Karma never gets the wrong address. It walks slowly, making sure its victim suffers every second of the way. That morning, the atmosphere in front of the luxurious house in Marin County felt different. The bank's seizure notice, that had hung ugly on the iron gate for the past year, was now gone. A taxi pulled up across the street. Mr. Henderson, the middle-aged man who used to be the security guard there, got out with a confused look on his face. He adjusted the collar of his old security uniform, which he had kept. Last night, he had received a call from an unknown number, asking him to come to this address at 9 a.m. "There's a job for you," the voice had said. Mr. Henderson walked hesitantly towards the gate. Since the house was seized, he had been forced to move back to his hometown and take odd jobs. His age made it difficult to find new work in the city. As he stood in front of the gate, a gleaming black Mercedes-Benz S-Class turned slowly and stopped right in front of him. The rear window rolled down smoothly. Mr. Henderson's heart nearly stopped when he saw who was sitting inside. "Mrs. Ava." Mr. Henderson stammered in disbelief, his eyes welling up. Ava smiled warmly from inside the car. She opened the door and stepped out. "Hello, Mr. Henderson. How have you been? Are you well?" Mr. Henderson immediately bowed his head low, holding back a sob that suddenly rose in his throat. "I'm well, ma'am. Thank God, I'm well." "Ma'am, why are you here?" "This house was. The bank put the house up for auction last month, Mr. Henderson," Ava interjected gently, "and I bought it back. In cash, under my own name. It's all clean, legal, and has no connection to Mark's bankrupt company anymore." Mr. Henderson lifted his face, looking at Ava in amazement. He remembered clearly how the bank had seized the house. It turned out Ava had deliberately let it happen so she could take over the house cleanly, without fighting over marital assets in court. The mind of his former employer was truly extraordinary. "So, you're moving back in, ma'am?" Ava nodded. "Yes, but this time, the house is too big for me to manage alone. I need someone I can trust to handle security here." Ava reached into her purse, took out a thick envelope, and placed it in Mr. Henderson's hands. "Here are the keys to the guard post. There's also some transportation money and a new uniform for you inside. Would you like to work for me again? I'll pay you double what the person who threw you out used to pay." Mr. Henderson's tears finally fell. His hands trembled as he accepted the envelope. He didn't care about his pride. He immediately knelt and kissed the back of Ava's hand repeatedly. "Thank you, ma'am." "Oh, God, thank you so much. You truly are a good person, Mrs. Ava. I promise I will guard this house with my life. No evil person will ever be allowed to enter your home." "I know, Mr. Henderson. I trust you," Ava said, helping the old man to his feet. "Now, please open the gate. I want to go home." Mr. Henderson nodded enthusiastically. He ran to the giant iron gate, unlocked the new padlock, and pushed both sides wide open. He stood at attention, giving the most perfect salute as Ava's car slowly drove into the garage. The morning sun streamed through the large second-floor windows, illuminating the master bedroom, which had been completely transformed. Gone was the dark, stiff furniture left over from Mark. Everything had been replaced with a modern, minimalist design in warm, calming pastel colors. Ava stepped out onto her bedroom balcony. She wore a soft silk robe, a cup of hot black coffee in her hand, steam still rising from it. She leaned against the balcony railing, looking out at the spacious backyard. The clear blue swimming pool reflected the sunlight, creating dancing ripples of light on the walls. The sound of birds chirping came faintly from a mango tree in the corner of the garden. Peace. It was such a simple word, but its price was incredibly high. Ava sipped her coffee slowly. The perfect bitterness mixed with the rich aroma was a treat for the senses. She remembered the events of a year and a half ago, the day she stood on a hot sidewalk, thrown out with only a small suitcase, the day she was considered weak, worthless, a beggar. She smiled to herself. Sometimes, people forget that silence is not a sign of weakness. Still waters often hide the deadliest undercurrents. Mark thought he was playing chess with a pawn, not realizing that all along, Ava was the one who had designed the board and written the rules. The phone in her robe pocket vibrated. A video call from David. Ava swiped the screen. David's cheerful face appeared. "Morning, CEO," David greeted enthusiastically. "Sorry to bother your weekend. Just wanted to let you know our pitch with the Silicon Valley VCs last night was a success. They've agreed to a Series B funding round for your startup. The valuation is 3 times what it was last month." A small laugh escaped Ava's lips. "Good work, David. Send the draft contract to my email. I'll read it after lunch." "You got it, boss." "Hey, by the way, are you comfortable being back in that house? No negative vibes or leftover parasite residue?" David teased. Ava looked around her. She looked at the house that was once a silent witness to her tears and betrayal, now a silent witness to her resurrection and strength. This house was no longer a prison built by Mark. It was a palace she had reclaimed with her intellect. "None at all, David," Ava replied, her voice steady and full of conviction. "The air is perfectly clean now. No parasites, just a clear blue sky." Ava ended the call. She looked straight ahead again, taking a deep breath of the morning air. She had razed her past to the ground. And on top of those ruins, she had built a new kingdom that no one could ever tear down. The game was over, and the queen stood as the absolute winner.